The Roy Rogers Museum felt like a tiny piece of the Wild West right around the corner. It was a place where visitors of all ages could step into the world of the king of the cowboys. For many years, it was a popular spot filled with nostalgic treasures, from shiny saddles to memorabilia that reminded visitors of classic Western movies. Now, those doors are shut forever, leaving many of us puzzled and asking how this happened. What caused such a famous landmark to close its doors? Let's take a walk down memory lane and explore the story behind the museum's closure. Before explaining why it closed, let's look at how it was created and why it became such a special place in the first place. Roy Rogers was born Leonard Franklin Sly in Cincinnati, Ohio, on November 5, 1911. His parents, Mattie and Andrew Sly, raised him on 2nd Street, which later became the site of Riverfront Stadium. Roy joked that he was born at second base, joking that he was destined for greatness from the start. He wasn't the only one. He grew up with 3 sisters named Kathleen, Mary, and Sita. Andy Sly, Roy's father, didn't like city life or his job. He hated it so much that he and his brother decided to leave it all behind. They built a small 12 by 50-foot houseboat using wood they salvaged. Who hasn't dreamed of leaving the 9-to-5 grind to float down a river? In July 1912, the Sly family began their houseboat adventure, heading up the Ohio River toward Portsmouth, Ohio. They planned to build a house on land they bought, but life had other plans. After the big flood of 1913, they moved the houseboat onto dry land and kept living in it. In 1919, they decided to settle down more permanently and bought a farm near Lucasville, Ohio, about 12 miles north of Portsmouth. They built a small 6-room house, but Andy soon realized farming wouldn't make them rich. He worked at a shoe factory in Portsmouth to earn enough money. Every weekend he came home and brought gifts. One time he brought home a horse, one of the best gifts young Leonard could imagine. He learned to ride because that's how he started. No one knew this was just the beginning of his cowboy journey. Without modern entertainment like radio, the Sly family had to create their own fun. Saturday nights were for square dancing. Neighbors would come over, and Leonard would sing, play the mandolin, and call out the dance steps. It was simple country fun. That's also when Leonard discovered how to yodel. He and his mom would yodel across the farm, which sounded way more fun than just shouting, "Dinner's ready." Leonard started high school in McDermott, Ohio. After 2 years, the family moved back to Cincinnati. Andy found a new job at a shoe factory, so Leonard quit school to help out. He tried to stay in school by going to night classes, but long hours at work made it tough to focus. After being teased for nodding off, Leonard gave up on school for good. It wasn't a perfect story, but he turned out okay. By 1929, Leonard's sister Mary and her husband moved to La Halle, California. It seemed like the place to be. Leonard and Andy decided to leave their factory jobs behind. They packed up their 1923 Dodge and drove west to chase the California dream. But after 4 months, they returned to Ohio. Still, the call of California pulled them back. This time, Leonard had a chance to go with Mary's father-in-law. He didn't hesitate. The family followed him in spring 1930, settling near Mary in La Halle. Leonard and his dad found work hauling gravel for a highway project. Life in California looked promising at first. Then, in 1931, the company went bankrupt. No job, no money, just the struggles of the Great Depression. Leonard refused to give up. He moved to Tar, California, and picked peaches for Delante. It was hard work, not glamorous, but he kept going. He lived in a labor camp that looked straight out of the Grapes of Wrath. Still, they made it work. Bigger things were waiting for Roy in California. This event would change Roy's life forever. Keep watching to learn what happened. When 19-year-old Len came back to La Ole, his sister Mary had a plan. She told him to audition for a local radio show called Midnight Frolic on KC's in Englewood. Len was naturally shy. With a gentle push from Mary, he finally took the leap. A few nights later, he wore a Western shirt Mary made, proving you don't need designer brands when you have a talented sister. Len arrived with his guitar, singing, strumming, and even yodeling for fun. Surprisingly, he nailed it. A few days later, he was invited to join a country music group called the Rocky Mountaineers. That was a good start for a shy guy. In August 1931, Len officially joined the band and soon wanted to expand it. He placed an ad in the Los Angeles Herald. Examiner, looking for a tenor who could yodel. Yodeling was the trend back then. Bob Nolan responded to the ad. He was Canadian but didn't stay long with the group. Still, Len and Nolan hit it off and kept in touch. Later, Tim Spencer replaced Nolan, and the band kept moving forward. By spring 1932, Len, Spencer, and another guy named Slumber Nichols formed a trio. It didn't work out, but they didn't give up. Throughout the year, Len and Spencer kept switching groups, trying their luck with bands like the International Cowboys and the Obaro Cowboys. When Spencer needed a break from all the band work, Len found a new gig with Jack Lefevre and his Texas Outlaws, who played a lot on local LA radio. In 1933, Len, Nolan, and Spencer reunited and formed another group called the Pioneers Trio. This time, they were serious. Len played guitar, Nolan handled the bass, and Spencer was the lead singer. They rehearsed tirelessly, working on their harmonies until they were tight. Nolan and Spencer also started writing original songs. Len juggled this band with his radio jobs. Things changed in 1934 when they added Hugh Farr, a fiddle player with a deep bass voice. His addition gave their harmonies a fresh sound. With Farr in the group, their style became more polished. A radio announcer thought they needed a new name. Pioneers Trio didn't suit such a young band. He changed it to Sons of the Pioneers. That name stuck. They weren't just a trio anymore. They had become a real band. By summer 1934, they weren't just local hits. Their radio segments got fed across the country. Soon, they became a national sensation. This led to a recording deal with Decca Records. On August 8, 1934, they recorded their first tracks, including Bob Nolan's Tumbling Tumbleweeds. Over the next 2 years, they kept building their reputation. They released 32 songs, including the hit Cool Water. From struggling band members to national stars, the Sons of the Pioneers made a real name for themselves. Roy wasn't just famous in music. He also had a big film career and built a merchandise empire, which explains his museum. Moving forward, he took his talents to movies, becoming a true legend in Western films. His start in movies came in 1935, and he hit the ground running. He scored steady roles in Westerns and even played a singing cowboy in supporting parts, still under the name Leonard Sly, in a Gene Avey film. By 1938, he found himself in financial trouble after demanding a salary the studio refused to pay. they began searching for a new singing cowboy who wouldn't cost too much. Many singers from across the West, including Willie Phelps of the Phelps Brothers, lined up for the chance. Len won the contest and got his new stage name, Roy Rogers, from Republic Pictures, combining the catchy first name Roy with the iconic last name of Will Rogers. With his new identity, Roy quickly got the lead role in Under Western Stars. He soon became a matinee idol, rivaling the popularity of Gene Autry as America's top singing cowboy. It wasn't just his films that made him famous. He also appeared in supporting roles, like in the 1940 John Wayne classic Dark Command, sharing the screen with future sidekick George "Gabby" Hayes. Roy's charm didn't go unnoticed. From 1939 to 1954, he was a regular in the top 10 money-making Western stars list in the motion picture Harold. He ranked first from 1943 to 1954 and dominated box office polls from 1938 to 1955, coming in first from 1943 to 1952. During the last 3 years of that run, only Randolph Scott kept him from the top spot. If Oscars for Cowboys existed, Roy would have won every one. Kids loved him. His movies made him a legend like no other. He stood out because most were filmed in color after the war, at a time when many Westerns still used black and white. Some films even featured funny animal adventures, with his horse Trigger having his own amusing escapades. Can you imagine a horse with its own story in Roy's world? Roy knew how to handle his business. In 1940, he negotiated a clause into his contract, giving him rights to his name, likeness, and voice for merchandise. He understood how to make money off his fame. He started selling Roy Rogers action figures, cowboy books, playsets, and comics. His Roy Rogers comics, written by Gaylord Dioy, became a big hit. He was second only to Walt Disney when it came to merchandise with his name. The Sons of the Pioneers, the group Roy helped teach, still performed long after he made them famous. They kept changing members as some retired or passed away. Even when Roy wasn't performing with them, he stayed connected. They often backed him in films, radio shows, and TV. It was clear they shared a lifelong friendship. In 1944, Roy was introduced to Dale Evans while filming. They were vocal about their Christian faith, and in 1949 joined a Hollywood Christian group started by their friend Louis Evans, Jr. This group included well-known figures like Billy Graham and Jane Russell. By 1956, they had formed Bel Air Church in Apple Valley, California, where they settled. Streets and public buildings near the church were named after them to honor their work with homeless and disabled children. Roy was also an active Freemason and Shriner, always supporting their charities. Roy and Dale had a catchy theme song called Happy Trails, written by Dale. They performed it as a duet at the end of their TV show. In fall 1962, they co-hosted the Roy Rogers and Dale Evans Show, a comedy Western variety show on ABC. Sadly, it only lasted 3 months, canceled because it couldn't compete with the Jackie Gleason Show on CBS. Roy didn't let this setback stop him. He made many guest appearances on other popular TV shows, often playing himself or cowboy characters. One memorable part was on Wonder Woman, in an episode called The Bushwhackers. Roy owned a Hollywood production company that made his series and other projects. One was the Western series Brave Eagle, which aired from 1955 to 1956 on CBS. It starred Keith Larson as a young Cheyenne chief, giving a fresh twist to the cowboy show. In 1968, Roy licensed his name to Marriott, which turned its Hot Shops restaurants into Roy Rogers Restaurants. He wasn't involved in running them, but his name appeared everywhere. In 1970, he returned to Texas Tech University to star at the Texas Tech Rodeo, sharing the stage with Dale. His last film was in 1975, called Macintosh and TJ, shot at the 6666 Ranch, near where he first began. So why did he shut down his museum? After all, Roy was very successful. Closing the Roy Rogers Museum was like saying goodbye to a favorite childhood toy. It was a treasured display of his life and career. The museum started in California and later moved to Branson, Missouri. Since 1957, it was a popular spot for Roy Rogers fans, full of artifacts from his career. The collection included flashy plastic saddles and carefully crafted leather cowboy boots. There were taxidermy animals he had worked with, too. One special story involved Trigger, his famous horse. When Trigger died, Roy kept it a secret from his family for a year. He couldn't face burying him. Instead, Roy had Trigger stuffed and displayed in the museum as a symbol of their close bond. It was a very personal and unusual collection. The museum meant a lot to Roy Rogers fans. Many of us would go to great lengths for a beloved pet. So why did the museum close? The answer lies in Roy's own words to his son. He said that if the museum ever became a financial burden, it should be sold after his death. When Roy passed away in 1998, the family started to notice fewer visitors. Attendance dropped from thousands to just a few dozen. It was tough for everyone involved. The family tried to keep it going, but rising costs and fewer visitors made it impossible. In 2009, they decided to shut the museum. Everything inside was sold at auction. The famous Christie's auction house hosted the sale. Roy's son, Dusty, had opinions on where some items should go. But it wasn't his decision to make. All he wanted was to know what would happen to Trigger. While the family felt sad seeing their treasures go, they also knew the items would thrill fans and collectors. In 2010, the auction sold over 338 items. Bids far exceeded what experts predicted. Roy's first guitar sold for $8,750, much more than its $2,000 appraisal. Show scripts went for 5 times their expected price. Even baseball memorabilia signed by Roy drew higher bids. Patrick GCH, owner of RFD-TV, stepped in to save Trigger and Bullet. His dog Gawk nearly lost Trigger because of a bidding mistake. He couldn't get his bid in and yelled, "Hit him! Hit him!" to raise the bid. Today, he still gets emails from fans thanking him for saving Trigger. The auction ended with a heartfelt moment. Trigger's stunt double, Dale's horse, went to a private collector. The crowd suddenly started singing "Happy Trails" one last time. The auctioneer called it the most emotional sale of her 20 years working at Christie's. The history of Roy Rogers, his show, and everything tied to it stayed alive in many hearts. Even today, as new generations grow up, memories of the golden-tuned king of the cowboys remain strong. Roy Rogers passed away on July 6, 1998, at his home in Apple Valley, California. He was 86. His wife, Dale Evans, and other family members were with him. Roy Rogers faced multiple heart surgeries in his later years. He is remembered as the king of the cowboys, but he has long left this world. His legacy, however, remains alive in our hearts. People cherish him for his outstanding performances, musical talent, and steady character. His influence was so great that President Bill Clinton mentioned him during a White House Rose Garden event. Clinton said he appreciated what Roy stood for, the movies he made, and the values they promoted. He added that many Americans, especially from his generation, feel both sadness and gratitude because of Roy's career. Pat Brady, Roy's longtime sidekick, said Roy truly believed in honesty, kindness, and decency, living those values to the fullest. Another legend called him one of the giants of the movie world and praised his character, love for family, and faith. Well-known figures like Reverend Billy Graham also remembered Roy's passing. He said Roy was taller than a hero and reached farther than the stars. Roy represents the best qualities that Hollywood can bring out. His son Dusty spoke about his father's legacy, recalling how, as a kid, he wondered what made Roy so exciting. After looking at old photos, fan mail, and clippings, Dusty found it hard to believe how much his father had accomplished. When Roy died, he left behind 15 grandchildren and 33 great-grandchildren. He had 6 children still alive: Roy Jr., Linda Lou Johnson, Dodie Sailors, Cheryl Barnett, Tom Fox, and Marin Swift, who carry on his memory. Roy Jr. even became the curator of a museum dedicated to his father. This museum was part of the Smithsonian and the Children's Museum, and included many displays about Roy's life. The New York Times also wrote an obituary that talked about the museum and Roy's visits to meet fans. Roy kept wearing his white Stetson hat, his gabardine suits, and shiny silver and leather belts. Even though his legs ached, he never stopped wearing his cowboy gear. The Roy Rogers Museum may no longer exist, but Roy and Dale's legacy continues to inspire new generations.